right. I think we are good. So, good afternoon instead of good evening. Welcome to a very special edition of Crazy Writer Chicks Live events. My name is Nikki Rome. I have got Rebecca White and Lee Fuhr here from Luminary Wealth with us today, which is why we're doing a little bit of an afternoon live session to talk about all things financial planning. So this is our 29th episode together, and we are very happy to have you here with us, Lee. So I will let you just go ahead. I'm going to turn it over to you to start. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do, kind of how you got into all this fun stuff, and then we'll go from there. So
sounds great. My name is Lee Fuhr, and I'm a financial planner with Luminary Wealth, which is based in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We also have a planner in Charlotte, North Carolina, but we plan for people all over the country and sometimes all over the world. It's really, really exciting work. And I was a stay-at-home mom for a little while, and I put that in air quotes because I never not worked. I just didn't have your traditional W-2, 9-to-5 kind of job. And before that, I was a data analyst accountant. So I've been in the finance field 20 years now.
Very good.
Wow.
Long time. Which I can relate. My day job is in finance. I've spent my entire world in in finance as well. Not financial planning though. So how did you actually get into that side of it, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so my youngest began kindergarten a couple of years ago, and so I knew it was time for me to go back to, that traditional job, traditional work environment. And when I had worked in accounting before, I really loved the work, but I hated the job. And it took me a while to figure out that it was because I was in a cubicle. And I am just a people person. I love people. I love impacting people's lives. And sitting in a cubicle in the back of somebody's finance department just didn't suit my personality. And so when I knew I wanted to go back to work, I decided that financial planning would allow me to use the skills I already had and the love of people and the love of, providing, guidance and I love linking arms with people and walking together. I think that it makes a significant impact in people's lives when you can be there for a long period of time. And I also really love real estate. I've always loved what neighborhood should you buy in? And when I worked at a corporate job in my hometown, people would come to me and say, so-and-so is relocating. Can you hook up with them and figure out, what school system would be best for them or what location? And so people kept telling me I should go into real estate and be a real estate agent, but I felt like that was a little more transactional than I wanted. It would have provided me a lot of that, puzzle solving, finance question sort of stuff. But, you sell a house to somebody and it's their dream home, and then you never do business with them again. And so financial planning really just fit the bill for me. I can help people figure out how to live meaningful and exciting lives now and save and prepare and plan for the future for themselves and for their families, for their children. We have a lot of clients who come in and say, I just don't want to be a burden to my kids. How can I make sure that happens? And I talk to women a lot. I specialize in women, and I hear from women a lot, I really want to understand my finances better. I don't want to go to the meeting and fold my hands like my mom does. Or, like I see my aunt and my uncle does all the finances and he does, he understands it all and she just pays the bills, but she doesn't really understand any further than that. And so we talk to women. I talk to women specifically, but we as a firm are really firmly rooted in the idea that every client, husbands and wives and single moms, divorcees, widows, all of those people, every client should and can understand their own wealth and make educated decisions. And so we have this lean into education focus at our firm that we want all of our clients to be able to make decisions for themselves instead of saying, oh, just trust me. That just makes my stomach turn, because a lot of financial advisors in the past, it was more of a broker-dealer kind of relationship. They were selling insurance. And you were never really sure whether what they were recommending was good for you or good for them, because they got a commission off of products they sold. And I knew that I didn't want to work in a commissioned environment, so I looked for a firm that was fee only and would embrace the idea that you need a woman on your staff, and I think it should be me. And so that's what I did. And I researched all the fee only financial planning firms in Fort Wayne, which is where I live. And then I put them in a big spreadsheet, and I ranked them by how well I thought I would blend with their vibe. And then I started interviewing them.
I love it.
A little bit of that former accountant life, which is coming in. And I put it in a spreadsheet. Yeah,
I did.
I know. That's perfect. So do you mind explaining a little bit about what financial planning really is? Because I think for a lot of people, it seems like something that's so unattainable. Like you need to have all this money in order to have someone help you. And that's really not the case very often, is it?
No, it really isn't. We work with people who have not a lot of money and people who have a lot of money. In the old days, historically speaking, you would look for a financial planner if you'd already made your millions. And we find more and more that younger people come to financial planners because they want to understand how to save less money and make more at the end. And what happens is, time is the thing you can't get back. So if we can encourage people to start saving early in their lives, like right out of college, don't buy the new car just because you got the new job and you have a fancy new salary, right? Don't buy a house before you have more than 20% of your down payment. We want to talk to those people and help them early so that they have to end up saving less money to wind up with the same end goal number. And so the industry is changing. It used to be brokerages, and you would buy insurance, and then they would also manage your money, or they'd put it into annuities. And then it shifted to this fee-based environment where they're charging off of what's called AUM, or assets under management. And that's just, we're going to charge you a fee based on how much money you bring us. And, what's good for you is good for us, because if you make more money, we make more money. And a lot of financial planning is still based on AUM fees. And that's great if you come in with $500,000 or more, because then the fees come out of your portfolio, just like any other 401k or IRA that you might have with Ameritrade or Schwab or your previous employer. They're all charging you a fee. You just don't see it. It's coming out of your quarterly statement. And so, that's kind of the way it's done these days, except that doesn't work for people who don't have money. So we have clients who are charging AUM fee, and that works beautifully for them because they already have a portfolio of money. But younger people who come to us and they need advice and they need guidance, and they say, I want a plan, and then I want you to help me implement my plan. We have a fee structure that is more like a Netflix fee. So it comes out monthly. It's a monthly fee that they pay to be a client of ours, but they write a check instead of it coming out of their portfolio because they don't have a large enough portfolio for it to make a difference. But what we see is those people who come to us early end up being more wealthy than their previous generation or their peers, because they got the advice early and they got the planning early. And what we do is we create this comprehensive financial roadmap for them. And every single one is unique. No two are the same, because no two financial situations are the same. You and your spouse are X age and Y age, and then you work at this job and she works at that job, and then she wants to stay home because you guys want to have kids and take some time off. And what does that do to the overall picture? And how can we save for your kids while we're saving for you and paying off college loan debt? And we need a bigger house, and my car broke down. Like, there are just so many factors to each individual plan, and no two are going to be exactly the same. So we design custom financial plans, and then we walk them through. We check off each one on the checklist, and sometimes it's its job to send us a form or to go look up that stock that they got when they were 15 from their grandma, and find out what cost basis that was, and then give us the information, and then we work with it, and then we come back to them and say, okay, this is what we would like to do next. And this is why. Because if you don't understand your finances, then people can take advantage of you. And we think that that's super inappropriate. And we work as fiduciaries. So even if we don't make money doing the thing that is right for the client, we are going to do what's right for the client. And that's what a fiduciary does. Their first priority is to the client. And a lot of in the old days, with the conflict of interest and you're selling insurance, you couldn't call themselves fiduciaries because their priority was to the company and the company's bottom line. And now we've gotten into an era where fiduciary reigns king. So if you are going to hire a financial planner, hire one that has credentials, right? The people in our firm have their CPA, they have CFP, which is Certified Financial Planner. We have certified actuaries. It is our only purpose to make money for you. And even if we don't make money doing it because it makes us less fees or whatever, because of the scenario under your individual financial plan, we're still going to do it because it's right for the client.
That's cool. So I really, really love your, I don't know if you call it, it's not really a logo, but your motto, maybe you call it, the live the life you want, plan for the future, and make a difference. And the focus on being able to give back to the community and planning in that way. I think more and more people, in my mind, more and more people are thinking that way, that we don't just want to hoard for ourselves, that we want to be stable, but that's not our end goal. Our end goal is to make a difference for other people too. And I don't know, I don't have a question about that so much as I just really like it.
Yeah, we have lots of clients who come to us and say, I don't want my kids to have my wealth, or all of it. They're like, I want them to work for themselves. Like they'll be fine. We'll give them a little bit, but we want to make an impact. I was in a client meeting just a few weeks ago, and it was a couple, and they've done very, very well for themselves. They've worked really hard and saved. They saved early and often. Love early and often, right? Because then time gets to do its job. And they have one daughter, and they said, we don't want her to get all this money. We want her to make a life for herself. She'll get some of it, but we want to make an impact. And so we were talking about, what does that mean to you? What does that look like to you? What is an impact in your mind? And to some people, it's giving to certain charities every year, that planned giving, charities that are close to their hearts. For some people, it's giving a large gift to their grandchildren when they need it during their lives. We have a lot of live giving that happens. Instead of leaving it in an inheritance, they can gift up to $15,000 a year per person. So, granddaughter wants to get a bigger house, doesn't have down payment. You can say, well, I'll help you with that. And then that impact is immediate. It's during their lifetime. And then we also have people who want to give large gifts, foundational gifts. Most cities have a community foundation, and you can set up a scholarship fund that is specific. So if somebody was a cardiologist, we have a retired cardiologist who is a client of ours, and he said, I want to set up a fund for future students who want to go into cardiology. And so it's a college scholarship that is housed at the community foundation, and the amount that he donated grows in excess of the scholarship every year. So the foundation, that fund continues to grow, and then children who are, young adults who are going into medical school and want to study in cardiology can apply for that scholarship. So there are just so many different ways that we can give, either during our lifetime or upon our passing, that make an impact in the community. And I agree with you. A lot of people are leaning in that direction these days. We have a friend of mine who was a real estate developer, and he developed thousands of houses in my hometown, and then created a family foundation so that he could die poor at 82. That's his plan, is to die poor at 82. Now, don't feel bad for him. He lives in a mansion. He does just fine. And he does all the things he wants to do. But the excess of his wealth, he said, this community made me wealthy. I want to give everything that I made back to them. And so
That's
that
awesome.
foundation gives grants to arts organizations and community initiatives that are important as part of the foundation's mission statement. So yeah, we're seeing a lot more of it, and it's
That's
really
neat.
delightful. And we as a firm also believe that really strongly, and so we give back every year as well.
Do you have like a general rule, a rule of thumb for what that percentage or amount might be, or do you go completely by um, like if someone said I want to give more, but like I don't know how much I should give, or like when I was growing up in church, it was 10%. You know, like you would just in general, that was like the kind of the general rule. Is there a general rule still, or is it more just um, I get? Does that make any sense?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
There isn't one hard and fast rule in terms of giving. If you're young and still working and you want to tithe or you want to give to charities, it tends to be a conversation of what can your budget bear, right? Let's account for all of your expenses and then put in some travel for you and your family and saving for the future for college. And then if there is money left, then you can decide to give a portion of it away. And then for folks who are older and either are nearing retirement or in retirement, we talk about, we have this really wonderful software that we use, and it puts all of the pieces of the puzzle together and ties it up in a nice, neat little bow. And we can say, okay, if you die at the time that we are anticipating that you will die, and we push it out like late 90s, right? So let's say we think that you're going to live till 95 and 99, Mr. and Mrs. Client. And your money, given your existing expenses, plus the travel that you think you want to do, plus the giving that you think you want to do, you are still going to die with $500,000, right? On average. And then there's also a calculation for what if the stock market takes a crash like 2008, and what happens to your money if that happens in the first 2 years of your retirement. We call it bad timing. And then it accounts for that. And where would you be if the market were to take a really big dip early in your retirement and takes, like, let's say, a third or a half of your life savings away, and you don't have time to rebuild, right? What does that do, and where do we sit? And then we can kind of get a feel for, this is what you've got left. Now you can spread it over the years that we think you're going to live. And then if there's some left, then whatever's in your will, whoever gets it in your will get it in your will. Or you can give a larger gift up front now, and then just not have as much later. Does that make sense? And then we also have people who will donate to their grandkids' college funds. Recently, there was legislation that was passed that changed the way that the FAFSA looks at kids' income in terms of financial aid eligibility. And it used to be that any 529 college plan that was named to that child counted against them in terms of financial aid. And that is no longer the case. It's only 529s that are in their name or their parents' name. And so what we're finding is a lot of grandparents are setting up or contributing to 529 plans that they open for the grandchild. If they are the owner of the 529 plan, if the grandparent owns the 529 plan,
Gotcha.
it doesn't count against the grandchild, in terms of financial aid eligibility. So we've got some people who are giving to their grandkids 529 that they set up for them because it doesn't count against them. And that's just another way that people can give from the wealth that they have acquired over the course of their life. And it makes a direct impact in people they love.
It's interesting. So I was going to ask you if you had tips or like ways people how do people know if they're financially well or not? And now I'm thinking they'd be better off just to get the like free consultation.
We do offer free consultations. I always encourage people to come in and have a chat. I do lots of coffee shop chats with people. Let's just sit down and see where you are. And does it make sense for you to have a financial advisor at this time? Or can I give you some tips to go work on and then come back to me in a year or two when you've kind of, done some of the things, the pre-work, we call it pre-work.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest top three, I'll give you my top three that I tell people in a free consultation. The first one is, do you have high interest debt? Because if you do, then that's something we need to work on pronto. And
Right.
creating a budget that pays off that high interest debt is really important. And sometimes that means that you don't go out to fancy dinners for a while, right? You don't get the special things, the I deserve this sort of indulgences, right? And we all want to say, oh, I cooked every night for the last week. I want to go out, I want to go out for dinner. But if you're trying to pay down high interest credit card debt, you need to see that as more important than not doing the dishes for a night. And my kids, I have 4 children, and we work together on money a lot. I talk to them about money a lot. It is a regular part of our dinner conversations. Whenever they want to go to Starbucks, we talk about what that really is going to cost them. And so I developed this quote that I use on my kids all the time. Your long-term why must be stronger than your short-term want. Because if
like
what
that.
you want
Write it
down
down
the
somewhere.
road is more powerful than what you want right now, then you won't spend that money at Starbucks or the Five Below or the Walmart toy section. And so, just as an example, our summer vacation this summer is to Florida, and they all want to fly on a plane. There are 4 of them, and they all want to get on a plane. And they want to go someplace that is rather expensive to fly. And so every time they ask me to buy something that I think is, that's a want, not a need, I say, okay, you can do this, or we can go to Florida. Which one would you prefer? Because you can't have both. And we repeat the quote, your long-term why, which is in this case, a trip to Florida on an airplane, must be stronger than your short-term want. And so when people are paying down high interest credit card debt, that is what they need to be thinking about all the time. Do I really need that extra coffee? Do I really need to go to the store right now? Do I really need that extra pair of shoes? I know they're cute. They're really cute, but do you need them right now? Or can we focus on paying down your credit card debt so that you can have this future self who says, man, thank you for doing that, right? Because it's really important to not give the credit card companies any money that you don't necessarily need to give them, right? Now, we're not talking about mortgages. We're not talking about student loan. We're talking about high interest, 25% interest credit card debt. Because every month you are giving money away. Every month you don't pay that off. So that's number 1. Really, really important. Okay. Number 2, unless you make more than the max, which is $208,000 in income every year, you and everyone in your family should have a Roth IRA. And it's just named a Roth IRA because Senator Roth is the one who proposed it in Congress in the late 80s, early 90s. And it is a special kind of IRA. An IRA stands for Individual Retirement Account. And so a Roth IRA allows you to put after-tax money into an investment account, a Roth IRA account, and then it grows tax-free forever. And I don't mean just until the end of your life forever. Like, you can deed it to your children forever, and it continues to be tax-free. It grows forever into eternity with no taxes assigned. And doesn't everybody want tax-free money? Right? Don't you want tax-free money? I want tax-free money. So we talk about Roth IRAs a lot because you can put up to $6,000 every year into that Roth IRA, and then it'll grow forever with no tax. And a 401k is great, but I wouldn't say max out your 401k before you max out your Roth, generally speaking, because that money is going to grow tax-free forever. And the growth over, let's say you're 25 years old and you're working full-time and you're putting into your 401k, that growth over the next 50 years is going to be a lot more because you don't have to pay tax on it when it comes out. So Roth IRA is number 2. And also, I will say children are all eligible for Roth IRAs. All my kids have Roths. And the caveat here is that the money that goes into a Roth IRA must be earned income. So you can't salary your 3-year-old at $15 an hour, 15 hours a week, and then put $6,000 in their Roth at the end of the year. right? That just doesn't fly because you wouldn't pay anybody else's 3-year-old $15 an hour to do anything. So it's really important that it's earned income. So instead of an allowance, and this is one of the things I talk about a lot with my young clients, instead of giving your child an allowance, salary them. Tell them that they're earning a salary. Because when we go to a job, we work and then we expect to get paid later, right? And we wait for that paycheck. We don't get it right away. There's no immediate instant gratification when we go to a regular W-2 job. And so by salarying them and saying, I'm going to pay you $20 a month, or I'm going to pay you $10 a month, or I'm going to pay you $30 a month based on their age and, you know, ability to do tasks around the house. You're salarying them for household chores. And then that can be classified as earned income. And then they can put it in their Roth IRA. So what I do with my kids is I salary them at $20 a month, each of them. And this is above and beyond keep your room clean and put your dishes away. That's just like you being a kid and living in my house. Right. But then above and beyond, like they help me empty the dishwasher. They help me vacuum. They help me dust. They help me with household projects. They feed the cats. You know, they help me shovel the driveway when it snows. My son, who's 12, gets up on a little, 4-foot ladder and helps me empty the gutters on the low portion of the house. Like these are things above and beyond being a child in my house and getting to live for free. And then sometimes I'll put up a little piece of paper on the refrigerator that says jobs for hire. And it's like, this is $1 and this is $2 and this is $3 or this is 50 cents. And, they'll take you like a minute to do it and you could earn 50 cents. So those little things you can do with your children. And then at the end of the month, you do an auto draft from your checking account to their savings account. I'll give a plug to PNC Bank. They have a fantastic savings program for children. And it comes with a DVD with Elmo on it. And it talks about for me, for you, and for later. And so it's a wonderful thing that you can do with your kids. You log into the website and they're like little mason jars and they can save money into a specific jar for a specific purpose or save money to give to a charity. I love using PNC Bank for my kids' accounts, and I personally bank there also. And so I do an auto draft every month from my account to their account as their salary. And then they're allowed to spend that money. They earned that money. But at the end of the year, whatever is left goes into their Roth IRA. And then we're saving for their future retirement. And I have a 7-year-old, right? So when my 7-year-old turns 72, every $5 she saved as a young person is going to be about $275. And so anytime you can tell them that they really don't need that Starbucks, like you really want Starbucks, but, or Dunkin' Donuts or whatever, but it's going to cost you $275. You really want to spend that money? It really makes them think hard about whether they really want that coffee, or we can just go home and make coffee and put caramel syrup in it. So, so that's number 2, right? Number 1 was high interest credit card debt, and number 2 is Roth IRAs. Okay, and then number 3 is if you have a job, how much are you putting into your 401k? Because if you're young and you have very little responsibility in terms of like you don't have kids, you don't have a big house, like maybe you have a little house, but you don't have a big house, how much are you putting in? And what you'll find is in a traditional W-2 job, your 401k, the employer will match at 3%. 3% of what you give is what they will give. And that's just kind of it's traditionally across the board. That's how retirement plans for employers work. And it's misleading because we really want people to be putting away about 15%. 15% gets them to where they're supposed to be later in life. And if they can give more in their early years and then, oh my God, I had a kid, I can't put that much in anymore, then that stuff that you put in really early gets to grow. It gets that extra time that we talked about. And time is the thing you can't get back. So those are my big 3. And then, of course, everybody's situation is so unique. I work with divorcees and I work with widows, and then I work with families where we have a domestic CEO. So, maybe she had a career, but then she stopped her career to stay home and we don't know when she's going back. And, do we need her to go back, or can we just budget in a way that allows her to stay home longer? And when she does go back to the workforce, what can she contribute from her income in terms of either putting it in her Roth IRA or getting a traditional 401k plan with her new employer? There's just so many circumstances. Some people have vacation homes or boats, or they have this goal to see every national park in the country, and how do we get that into the scope? Some people want to go to Europe, some people want to have real estate. We have lots of clients that also own real estate and rental homes, and how do they get into that, and how do they sustain that with all of the other things they have going on? So, if we get past the 3 checklist, and then they really do want to have a customized, individualized plan, then we talk about, okay, let's make you a retainer client, and you'll pay a monthly fee for the advice and the work that we'll do on your portfolio as you grow. And then, we've had clients who started with us 15 years ago, and we projected what they would have in 15 years, given the decisions we thought we were going to make for them. And they come out 150, 250, sometimes $300,000 more money than they would if they'd stayed on their current trajectory. And that makes a huge difference in somebody's life when, they work their whole career, and then they retire, and you go, okay, how much do I need, right? What's that magic number? And we can see it so many years in advance and make decisions ahead of time that get them there without really hurting their wallet in the current period of their life. Because we want them to go on vacation with their kids, and we want them to have the nice house, and we want them to be able to buy a new car when the old car hits the bucket. And so we don't want to sacrifice quality of life now for quality of life later. We want quality of life in continuum.
So how do you handle the clients with the more variable income? I mean, a lot of the women in our group are creatives. Many own their own businesses, or on the verge of owning their own businesses, or taking the side gig and trying to make it a full-time situation. Because there's a lot of fear, I think, that many of the women face in making those changes. So I'm just curious, as far as the planning piece of it, the financial things to consider in those situations, I imagine they're very similar to what you've shared already, right? I mean, is there any major differences when you're handling a small business client versus someone who's working for someone on a W-2?
Yeah, we have several creatives that we work with, and a few people who did quit that big fancy job so that they could start a business that was their passion. And we build a roadmap for them specifically, right? It has to meet their criteria. It has to be what you need now and what you need into the future. And starting a business has costs associated, and quitting your W-2 has costs associated. And they're like, all of a sudden you have no health insurance, maybe. And that's a piece of it that we have to think about, and how are we going to manage that? I would say that the planning is a little bit different, because we don't have a consistent monthly check going into a savings account or a retirement account. We can't necessarily count on income that's coming in now to continue into the future. And often we have to project that there will be a big dip for a little while. And sometimes, 3 or 4 or 5 years, you're going to take that income dip. And can you handle that? And so there is some different philosophy around planning for creatives and planning for variable income. I always like to say that if you are on a variable income and you are making consistently what is your considered, I'm covering my necessities, right? I'm covering the bases. I can pay my rent or my mortgage. I can pay for my car insurance and my health insurance. I can buy food for the kitchen. I can do all those things on what I would consider my normal minimum. Especially, if you're a writer and you're writing columns or short pieces or, blogs or ghostwriting, those types of things for other people, for other publications. And you may or may not get paid for those right away. You have to figure out how you can make your baseline and cover your necessities. And then if you have a month that's more, don't splurge. Because that's really hard to do. I have a buddy who was a Broadway actor for almost 20 years. And he would be part of a cast, part of a show, and then he would get some time off because the show ended. But because he didn't know when his next paycheck was going to come in, he didn't take lavish vacations. Couldn't take them because he had no idea how long he had to live on the money that he had saved. Mm-hmm. And so when you do have a good paying gig as a writer or as a creative, especially if you're doing events, like if you're writing for magazines and that's like a monthly or a quarterly thing and you get paid every quarter maybe for the writing that you're doing, or maybe you wrote a book or you're writing for somebody that's doing a book and the book isn't going to get published for a while, then you have to maybe take jobs that you don't love in order to make the baseline. I have a friend who's part of this group, and she has a regular income that she doesn't love, but it pays the bills, and then she writes on the side. She writes, when she has free time, those types of things. And there's nothing wrong with the necessity of having a job you don't love for a little while until you can be at a place where your income is steady enough to be able to rely on it. So I hope that's not too confusing. It is so different for every circumstance and everybody's situation. And some people are married and some people are not. And so, you might be able to rely on your spouse's income, or you might not. You might be able to DoorDash for a while, or do Uber driving, or take some, other part-time gigs in the interim while you're trying to get that ball rolling. We have a client who wanted to start a marketing firm, and she was working at a marketing company, and she had some shares, some interest in the company that was going to be vesting, which means that it's accessible to you once it has vested. And so she was going to have 3 years where she had shares vesting each of 3 years. And we did all of this prep work around, we know that you're only going to have the money from these vested shares to live on for those 3 years while you launch your business. So it's sort of like a runway. But at the end of 3 years, we need your business to be making enough money to pay for that delta. And we built her a customized plan, and she gave us all her money. And she literally had to come to us when she wanted to spend money. And that provided a really nice sort of, resistance roadblock to say, do I really need to spend this money right now? And for some people, if you don't have control of your spending because of your own personal urges, you want to go and you want to buy those shoes, or you want to buy that purse, or, whatever. There are different ways that you can go about framing your spending so that you don't go over. And, the most basic is like the envelope, cash in an envelope, right? The envelope theory.
Yep.
And so you go, this is what I have for groceries, and this is what I have for rent, and this is what I have for car insurance, and this is fun money. You have to have fun money in your budget, even if it's like $10 for 2 Starbucks trips, right? If you don't have fun money, you will feel imprisoned by your budget, and you will break out of it. All the studies show that. There has to be fun money built into your budget, even if it's a tiny little itty bitty, like I can go to the grocery store and I can buy the itty bitty little Haagen-Dazs ice cream for $1.50, right? So that is one of my little pleasures. I love Haagen-Dazs coffee ice cream. And so I can buy the little itty bitty one, and it controls the amount of ice cream that I buy, but I feel special when I go buy it. And so I could do that 5 times in a month and still not break $15. And so that would make me feel like, oh, I have fun money. And so that's just one, the other thing that you can do is, if you have someone that you trust, a family member that you trust, you can create this accountability circle where you literally have to go and ask them for permission for the money that's in the account that, you set aside or whatever. And that makes you think twice or 3 times before you actually go and spend that money. But then when you do have a good bump, when you have an article that gets published, or you have a book that gets published, or you get a really good paying gig, and you have an influx of extra money, it's really important to set that aside, or a good big portion of it aside. Because if you're only covering your baseline every month and you're not contributing to your retirement, then you're not paying your future self. Mm-hmm. And so when you do have a payday, it's really important to take some of that, as much as you can handle, as much as you can stand, and set it aside, so that when you are old, then you have money that you set aside beforehand, and it does get an opportunity to grow. But again, everybody is different. Every circumstance is individual, and it never hurts to have a consultation with a licensed financial planning firm who can say, now that I've looked at all of your circumstances, here is what I would recommend to you. And a lot of financial planning firms do free consultations. Some of them are just sales pitches. I will warn you that some people go, oh yeah, I'll do a free consultation, and really it's just a pitch deck so that you can, become their client. And we just don't believe that. We don't believe that that's what a consultation ought to be. Consultation ought to be, I'm going to sit down with you and I'm going to figure out if I can help you. And if I legitimately can help you and you can legitimately afford it, then let's work together, because people who work with financial planners on average earn more in their lifetime, in their retirement, and have more to spend at the end than those people who try and do it on their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one time, this was years ago, I was talking to an acquaintance who they were having, I guess, some pretty severe financial issues. And I said, well, have you talked to an advisor or someone, to help with that? And she was like, no, because we did this before, and they ended up wrapping all of their debt into one thing. So then they were basically paying on their car for 25 years or whatever. You know what I mean? Like one of those kind of a refinance, but probably not in their best interest. And at the time, she felt like I guess they felt desperate because they wanted a lower payment, but it in long term wasn't good. And she basically it turned her off of the whole idea of getting someone else involved. And I was like, yeah, but not everybody's like that. But I guess knowing the difference, if you don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of misconception around who gets paid for what. And I would advise people to really dig into, how does my advisor get paid? And if your advisor gets paid on commission, I would think twice. Because that's a conflict of interest. No matter how much they tell you it's not, they still have a responsibility to their company first, and not to you. They are not a true fiduciary. The debt consolidation companies they are predators. They prey on desperate people. And it is never a good idea to talk to them. It might sound like a good idea to talk to them, and they might promise you a lot of things, that your payment would be lower and you can pay over a long period of time, and you can get this loan that is secured by your vehicle, and this and that and the other. There are lots of predatory companies out there, and they will, over the course of the time that they have the loan with you, they will earn money from you. And so that is a conflict of interest. Again, I would say that if you have high interest credit card debt, that should be your top priority before saving for retirement. If you have, your retirement fund is going to earn, like on average over the last 50 years, adjusted for inflation, the stock market has earned 6.8%. Now that's a mix, right? It has some fixed income in it, and fixed income earns like 1%, less than 1% sometimes. It's like, your savings account at the bank is earning you 0.001%. You might get like a deposit for 11 cents every once in a while. And so the 6.8% is given an equal mix of stocks and bonds. But I mean, right now we have gone through the last 2 or 3 years in the stock market like no one has ever seen in our lifetimes. There has been stock market growth of exponential proportions since COVID hit in March of 2020. And even then, you're still not going to make returns bigger than interest is costing you.
Right.
Still, even with the best stock market we have seen in our lifetime, you're still not going to make returns that would pay off the interest that you're paying on your credit cards. So high interest credit card debt is first and foremost. And what I would do is I would take a piece of paper. Oh, look, I have one right here. I would take a piece of paper and I would write out all the different, debt. This is just an example that I was using on somebody the other day. So this is like a Chase credit card and an Amex credit card, and then an Amex business card and a Home Depot card. And some of it is high interest and some of it is not. If your Home Depot card is like from a project that you did and you spent more than $300, they're going to defer that interest for 6 months. So you want to spend more time on your personal credit card that's charging 26.99% and wait on that Home Depot card, right? If you have a personal loan from your bank and they're charging you 8 or 9%, you want to just pay that one down, whatever the minimum payment is every month, while you pay down your 26.99% high interest credit cards. Prioritize those high interest credit cards. make sure that you're putting as much as you can right up front, like as soon as you get paid. There are lots of budget softwares out there. There are lots of, spreadsheet templates that you can put in, and you can say, these are my expenses every month. I have to have this from my paycheck in order to live, right? And then you can set aside money, your fun money, right? Whatever that means to you. Maybe it's your wine fund. Maybe it's your ice cream fund. Maybe it's I want to go to Starbucks once every other week, $10 a month, right? Then whatever is left, you shove at that credit card the minute you get paid. Because if you don't have it, you won't spend it. And so that's really, really important.
Which I think that speaks to that behavioral aspect of it, because spending and savings is a behavior, right? So if we don't accomplish those first couple steps, right, getting rid of the high interest debt, contributing to an IRA, it's going to be really hard to sit down and follow a full plan all the way to a successful retirement. Like if I can't take the extra $5 I want to spend on a coffee and pay off the credit card I'm paying 26% on, like the change in behavior has to happen pretty early on for a client to be successful.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes that missing piece too, especially with business owners, because the first thing you want to do is take the money that you've made and just shove it right back into that business again, right? Because they're everybody's business. Years ago, I worked for a woman and she was like, every business owner you talk to thinks they're going to retire with millions of dollars on their own private island. Like that's what they all think. That's what they're all working towards. She's like, and you need them to realize that what we need to be working towards is a regular monthly income, right? A salary comparable to what you've made doing a good job at your previous job, and a retirement plan. And it's hard. It's so hard to have those conversations sometimes with people because you get this passion behind the project and everything goes into it. But like you said, I mean, if you're paying somebody more than the 6.8% you could potentially get on any money you're putting away, then you're just wasting money.
It's true. Yeah, you're giving away money to those credit card companies when you do it that way. So we want people to be relatively debt-free, right? And I'm not talking about a mortgage, and I'm not talking about a low-interest car loan or a lease, however you decide to do your vehicles. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about those credit card debts that are, and listen, like I have a credit card, I use it, I pay for groceries and gas, and I get, perks and points back. But then when the bill comes, I pay it off in full every month. And people think that will hurt your credit, which is a misnomer. The credit card companies take a snapshot of your credit card accounts. The credit companies, the credit bureaus, take a snapshot of all your revolving accounts every month. And then they say, on average, this is how much you're spending in your available revolving accounts. So if you have credit cards that you could charge $30,000, let's just say, in total, they want to see you spending less than a third of that. And the snapshot is regardless of when your payment date is. So they're going to see that you're using your credit. And that goes for good points for your credit unless you're using more than 30% of your available credit. And that's another thing that we talk about with people who they want to improve their credit score, or they have children, they have teenagers or college students who want to improve their credit score. There are lots of strategies that we use with our clients to help them get a better credit score without incurring extra debt, right? Or without taking on more responsibilities than they can reasonably pay for. People think that having a credit card is bad. And having a credit card is bad only if you can't have the self-control to manage it, right? That's how Dave Ramsey has made his millions of dollars, is because those people don't have those healthy habits, like you were saying, Nikki, and they get themselves into trouble. And so his solution is no credit cards. Close all your credit cards. And I say, whoa, stop.
Right. That could actually be really bad for some people.
And it can actually negatively affect your credit. Like one of the credit cards that I have had since I was 18 years old. And the reason is because no one would give me a credit card when I was 18. So my mom opened a credit card account and added me as an authorized user. And because I'm an authorized user, every time she paid the bill, it would positively affect my credit. Now that credit card, we call it the mommy card. And like anytime I would be at a register somewhere, and I was a really responsible kid, that's why she gave me one. But anytime I would be at a register somewhere, she said, if you think that I would be standing next to you and I would pay for that, use that card. That's what it's for. Right? My parents worked really hard as teachers, and they were able to send me to college without me having to pay for college. And I will be forever grateful for that. And if I wanted to go buy shoes or go out with my friends or whatever, I had a part-time job at college to pay for those things. But they said, look, school is a full-time job, and we want you to take it seriously. So we're going to take care of all of the things you need while you're in your undergrad. Now, if I want a master's degree, that's on me. That was always the party line, right? And my sister got her first bachelor's and then had to pay for her second bachelor's and her master's program because that was the deal. Mom and dad pay for the first one. And then she decided that she didn't want to do the thing that she studied for, so she'd go back and do something else. But my mom opened this credit card, and then the bill would go to her. And to this day, she and I still have that credit card account that we share. We call it the mommy card, because sometimes she'll say, hey, can you go to town and can you get that for me? And just put it on my card. And then we're not like, here's the receipt and pay me back and whatever. But the point of this is that card has been open for more than 20 years now. If I close that card now, I lose the longevity that affords me with the credit bureaus. The credit bureaus want to see you have a card open for a really long time, and they want to see you using it. So sometimes what I'll talk to people about is get or have this, you have this one credit card and it is your gas card. That's all it's for. And you can kind of tell on average how much gas you're going to spend in a month based on previous gas receipts, right? And if you keep your receipts, you can go back and say, okay, here's 3 months of gas receipts. And on average, this is how much I'm spending. And then at the end of the month, you pay that off. But then there's activity on that card, and it continues to earn you good credit with the credit bureaus, but you're not overspending. If all you are allowed to use for is your gas, which you have to spend money on anyway, then you find that it's easy to pay it off because you already kind of set that money aside. You said, okay, I need $300 for gas. I'm not going to spend that $300. I'm going to put it in an envelope, right? Or if you have the checking account I have actually has 3 accounts. It's spend, reserve, and save. And so I can put money across over here. It's not in my checking account, so I can't spend it. And then when the bill comes, I move the money back and pay the bill, and it goes right back out again. So just little strategies like that can actually help you in the credit journey, because we want you to be using credit cards. We just want you to be using them responsibly.
Yeah, makes sense. You answered all my questions.
Yay!
I have my list here with all the checks. But I think, even I didn't cross that one off yet, debt versus investment, but you did talk about that. Yeah, we've talked about creatives and giving and kids and what to avoid and what to implement, and all the other stuff on there. This has been really good, informative. I hope a lot of people listen to it because I think they could get a lot out of it.
I hope people listen to it multiple times because I talk fast.
Yeah.
It's like a fire hydrant.
I took notes,
right?
but
it's a fire hydrant. You can't possibly walk away without taking notes with everything. And there are so many different strategies that we can implement that make your life better in the long term. They might feel like constraints in the short term because we're being smart about our money. But it's no different than going to the gym and saying, okay, I want to work shoulders, and I want to work back, and I want to work arms, and I want to work legs, and I want to work, lower legs, and I want to do cardio, and I want to do lifting. Okay. Yeah. And you don't want to pull a muscle either, right? So how do we incorporate all of that so that it's done in a way to build muscle, and you lean down and you don't get hurt, and you're not killing yourself at every gym session, and you're not so sore that you can't get off the couch the next day. It's a lot to think about and incorporate, and money is no different, right? There are lots of different buckets in our lives, especially if you have a house and a car and children. There's just a lot to go over. And I will say again, we do have a free consultation option. If you go to our website, you can ask for a free consultation. You can choose which advisor you want to talk to. If you are more towards retirement, you want to talk to Bob, because Bob is our Social Security expert. That's all he does. He does the run up to retirement and through retirement. He specializes in that age group. If you are 10 years out from Social Security, you want to talk to Bob because he's got way more information and history in the industry than I do. But if you are starting a business, you want to talk to Andy, and maybe me too, because maybe you're a female business owner. And Andy is our small business expert. Like, he works with people who are about to launch, launching, or have recently launched, or they want to like 10x the business. Okay, the business is 2 years old and we've survived. We didn't die yet, but we want to make it grow. Now, what do we do? Right? So that's Andy. And if you're an employer, or if you have a spouse who's an employer and you want to talk about retirement plans for your employees, you want to go talk to Scott, because that's what Scott does. Scott specializes in that. And if you are female, I want to talk to you because we share that. All of the people that I work with, I have the pleasure of having almost every experience they do, except being a widow. I haven't lost a spouse, but I have gone to college. I have lived on my own. I have owned a house all by myself. I have owned my own small businesses. I have been married. I have been divorced. I have children. I went back to school. Like, all of these scenarios that so many women face, I have experienced firsthand. And so we can walk together along those paths, and I can tell you what I did poorly and what I would love for you to do better. And I can tell you what I did well and what I think would be really helpful for you to replicate. Because as a gender, we typically work fewer years for less money. And at the end of our lives, we live longer than the men in our lives, typically, and we're the ones holding whatever wealth is left. And we want to be educated. I want you to be educated. It is my life's passion to make sure that more women are more knowledgeable about their money, because then you can make smart decisions now that will positively affect your future and your family's future for generations to come. And if I can teach you how to teach it to your children, then that's even better. And this year, I'm launching a series of conversation circles specifically on that passion. I'm going to do one in person here in Fort Wayne and one Zoom per topic. And so in April is my first one, and it's moms and daughters, ages 10 to 14. And then in the summer, I'm going to do one for moms and sons. And later in the year, we're going to do one for divorcees. And towards the end of the year, we're going to do one for the domestic CEO, which is that stay-at-home mom, and she's paying all the bills and running the books, and she's really smart, and maybe she had a career and then stopped her career to be a parent, but she doesn't know about investments, and it feels really daunting and uncomfortable to make those decisions by herself. And
Definitely
then
let us know about those as they come up, so we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in the following year, we're going to do more demographics. We're going to talk to divorcees and widows, and we're going to talk to female CEOs and small business owners and the creatives who have that variable income. And the point of all this is that when you come to one of my conversation circles, it is an intimate setting. It's 20 people or less. And when you walk in the room or you join that Zoom call, you have something in common with every other woman there. Something that you can speak to that everyone will understand. And we can talk specifically in that vein, from that viewpoint, from that perspective. How do we manage the next steps in our lives so that the future self will turn around and say, thanks for that.
That's great. Awesome. That's such great information, Lee. Honestly, I think this was, like Becca said, a very informative session. Hopefully a lot of our listeners will get a lot out of it. I will go ahead and link to Luminary Wealth. Any other resources or anything you would like us to include either in the comments of today's live or in the eventual YouTube video once we get this edited down, feel free to email those to me. But once again, thank you so much for the time and spending the time with us today. I think this was really great and gives a lot of women the ability to feel like they can take control again of this stuff.
You can do this.
Super important.
You can. Yeah, you can.
Awesome.
You absolutely can. It is not beyond your ability to manage your wealth and create wealth for yourself and for your family.
Awesome.
That's great. Thank you very, very much for coming.
Yes.
Thank
absolutely.
you for having me. It was my pleasure.
We will talk to you soon. Hopefully catch you in the future.
Yeah.
Have a good one, Lee.
You too.
Thanks, Becca. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.